Hello and welcome to the Viking Home Companion and another story from the good old days. Now this is actually about two separate events. Well, actually it's the same event but two different times, 1 year after the other. And this involves an event here in Ethelmark known as Blackstone Raids, which is a really fun event held down south in West Virginia. And the 2 years that I was able to attend, it was held at a camp with cabins that we could rent for overnight stay. You could still camp on site, but we also had the cabins, which for someone like me who's got some physical challenges, that's really helpful. So my memory blurs a little bit in terms of which one took place first. But my general recollection is that the first one deals with a significant event in the life of a friend of mine, Arnthor Insterki. And it's the day that he was given his writ to join the Order of the Chivalry. Now, this particular event I had already been in contact with His Majesty about. I had been talking to him about Arnthor, and His Majesty had already been talking about Arnthor with some of the chivalry at the time. And so it was finally decided that they were going to give him his writ at this event. Now, he didn't tell me ahead of time, at least not initially. I had always planned to go to this event. I wanted to go down there to fight if the body was being cooperative. Well, I was actually in the car on Friday heading to the event when a family emergency came up. So it wasn't actually my body giving me a problem, it was something mundane. Well, mundane as in not SCA. It was a situation that I did have to deal with. And so I had posted a comment on Facebook about not being able to attend because of that. And I think I might even have texted His Majesty about it because at the time he and I were talking, and I had told him I was going to that event. Not for any particular reason about awards or fighting or anything else other than just we're friends, and I wanted to let him know I was going to that event. So at any rate, it ended up I was going to be able to go. Well, he calls me and he says, "You really need to be at this event." I'm like, okay. And he goes, "No, you don't understand. You really need to be at this event." And I'm, okay, well then I will see what I can do. It may end up being that I have to drive down Saturday morning, but if I can at all make it, I will be there. He says, good. It is really important that you're there. So, I managed to get things resolved. I get up early on Saturday. The body is still being cooperative. And I throw my armor into the car, hop in, and I make the drive down to Blackstone Raids. It's about a 2.5 hour drive. It's not that bad. And I get there before the fighting starts. I get there in time to suit up and get inspected and so on. Now the weather wasn't all that great. We were getting heavy drizzle pretty much all day. It didn't actually become outright rain until later in the day, but early on it was just wet and damp and cool. The cool part I can handle pretty well. The damp and wet, not so much. So the body started giving me some issues about halfway through the morning. But I managed to get out there. I managed to fight a bit. I had some fun. And then as I'm getting ready to get out, His Majesty calls essentially a battlefield court. Calls everybody over. Calls for the chivalry. I'm heading over there as I'm figuring this is what His Majesty wanted me to be there to see. And yes, it was. They called Arnthor Insterki over, and right there on the battlefield, they gave him his writ to join the Order of the Chivalry. So I'm very, very glad that His Majesty was so insistent on getting me there. It was a tremendous moment because Arnthor had been a good friend to me from the moment that I arrived in Hunter's home, and it was an honor that I thought that he fully deserved and had been writing recommendations in and pushing for. So to be there for that moment was awesome. I missed far too many moments because of my conditions, something that His Majesty was aware of because he and I had talked quite extensively about such things before. So thank you, Timothy, Duke Timothy of Arundel, for those who don't know who I'm talking about, for making sure that I didn't miss that moment. And to Arnthor, I hope this recollection is enjoyable to you as well. I wanted to get it down. The whole point of these good old days is not simply for me to tell silly stories about things that happened, but things that happened that have some importance, to me at least, if not always to others. So there we are. You have been recorded in the good old days. And this won't be the last time, because I've got some other stories about you that are going to get in. So now we're moving on to the second of the Blackstone Raids. And this one was significant to me for a couple of reasons, but the primary one is it was the first time that I had been able to get back in armor since I had a heart attack. That's another one that I'm going to record good old days about, is the heart attack. But I had spent a year in cardiac rehab. My doctor, my cardiologist, knows all about what I do for a hobby here in the SCA and fully endorses me getting back in armor as often as possible. As a matter of fact, he's quite insistent about it, and whenever I have my follow-up appointments with him, the first thing he asks me is when was the last time I was in armor. So he, and actually all of my doctors are like that. We want you in armor as often as you can manage to get your body in armor. So it's nice to have that kind of support. So this was when I had finally reached the point in my rehab that the doctors had said it's okay for you to get back in armor. And so I made it down to Blackstone Raids. Now, this was another instance where the weather wasn't all that great. We were once again overcast and cool and damp. We didn't have a lot of active wet going on, but it was still damp. And the one situation there that sticks out the most to me is when I brought out my halberd. I have a great picture, couple of pictures of me with my halberd at that one. And the moment that sticks out the most for me was one of the bridge battles. My halberd, which I have since gifted to somebody else, its name was Skullreach, and it's 7.5 feet long. Typical halberd, axe blade on one side, hammer back on the other, thrusting tip off the top. And we are having the bridge battle, and I move up through the line, and as I'm moving up, I'm actually kind of keeping my halberd down. I don't want it to be real obvious that this nice, long polearm is coming up to the front. And then I finally get up to the second rank, right behind the first line of shields, and I take my halberd, and I sling that thing so that it stands straight up in the air with that blade sticking up, and the first thing I hear is somebody yelling, "Kill that halberd!" And I get a couple of good swings. I manage to nail one guy in the head, and then I immediately get stuffed by 2 or 3 spears. And so I step out over the hay bales, I go back to the resurrection point, I turn around, I come back in, and I keep the halberd down again, so I'm once again not giving away where I am, and I work my way through up the line to the other side. I had started off on the right-hand side, so this time I came through on the left-hand side, and I got up there, and I swung that halberd up in the air, and once again I hear, "Kill that halberd!" And I get a couple of swings in, and I do manage to nail one guy, and once again I get combined on from like 2 or 3 spears. But you know, the thing to me is, I actually don't mind it when I get combined on like that. Because to me, that is really kind of the same as me with my shield getting a 1-on-2 or a 1-on-3 situation where I'm being targeted by multiple people, because every time that I can tie up more than a single individual on me, that's giving my side a numeric advantage somewhere else. So if I can get 2 or 3 spearmen trying to take me out, that's 2 or 3 spearmen that aren't trying to take out others in the line. So, at any rate, I go back out, I step over the hay bale, I go back to resurrect, and I work my way up through again, and I've got the halberd down so people can't see it, and I get to just about the 3rd rank. I don't even get up to the 2nd rank, and I don't even get my halberd up in the air. I get up to about the 3rd rank when I hear somebody says, "Make sure you kill Torvald!" And I'm just laughing to myself when I hear that. I mean, I haven't even got up to the 2nd rank yet and got the thing up in the air, but as soon as I was spotted, somebody finally realized who it was that had the halberd, and now I was targeted. So I actually got up to the 3rd rank. I'm out of the range of the spearmen, and I get my halberd up, and I take a step forward, but then I immediately step back, and then I take a couple of steps over to the right, and then I take a couple of steps over to the left, and I step up to the 2nd rank, and as a couple of spearmen target in on me, I step back out of range. And so I did nothing for the rest of that particular battle, except keep some of those pikemen focused in on me, watching where I was going to take me out before I got up into range to hit them with my halberd. So again, I was doing the 1-on-3 dance where I'm tying up people. So that I felt was a really great homecoming to fighting after having been out for so long with my cardiac recovery. So that's another story from the good old days. Yeah, sure, you betcha.